So finally, conclusion. The papers in this issue demonstrate the distance SLA has come from where it was when we published our critique 30 years ago. So at that time, the traditional SLA field didn't actually believe in the multilingual over the monolingual ideology, right? And the native and non-native bias and more. It is heartening to note that many of the major criticisms we made then are being addressed. The newer models outlined here register quite a departure from the earlier models. For example, the native speaker is no longer considered to be the only or even necessarily the preferred target of acquisition. So we discussed this. This is just a concluding statement. The range of competence required no longer seeks to duplicate that of the ideal monolingual speaker of the target language. The monolingual bias has given way to a multilingual turn. Given way means has been replaced by a multilingual turn, and there is a more constructive appreciation of the contribution of and interaction with the other languages of the speaker and the community. The focus of SLA is no longer exclusively cognitive/structural, but has expanded to include a social/functional turn. The languages of the learner are no longer being studied as bounded formal systems. Instead, scholars recognize that they interact through hybrid dynamic processes to produce functional compromises. Learners are accorded agency, and their production is no longer judged as errors or categorized pejoratively, means in a bad light, as fossilizations simply because they do not correspond to native speaker norms. So Jew instead of zoo, it should not be made fun of, right? The learner is also viewed as a member of a communicative community, and the role of the learner's language in identity formation is recognized. The contribution of the situational or sociocultural context, both in shaping the processes and the products of the learner, it should be learner, right? Learner, of the learner and the user in terms of a multilingual ecology is recognized. The need to differentiate second language acquisition with reference to acquisition and use in the inner, outer, and expanding circles is recognized. So these circles, they should have different types of research going on, different attitudes, different everything, right? There are a list of differences above that we discussed. In short, there has been substantial progress toward incorporating the cardinal principles, the foundational principles of world Englishes into a holistic model of second language acquisition. But we cannot help noting and emphasizing that the above picture represents only the research of an enlightened minority. So most of the scholars have not actually been convinced about the multilingual bias and about functional over the structural equation of that conflict. So not all the scholars actually agree. So only an enlightened minority, such as the scholars who have contributed to this issue, the other writers of this issue. While this group includes some of the most respected and influential leaders in SLA and TESOL, and examples are Lourdes Ortega, Diane Larson Freeman, Suresh Kangaraja, it must be acknowledged that this change of perspective is not yet reflected in the field's mainstreams. So textbooks continue to be written with traditional mindsets, right? See Ortega, this issue, and May 2014 for specific examples. Textbooks in SLA, as I just said, continue to be focused on the cognitive/structural dimension, more grammatical, more stylistic, and more other superficial and surface level linguistics, language exercises, rather than communicative and functional, those types of things, and fail to incorporate social, functional, and multilingual perspectives. The native speaker/inner circle models continue to be used as prototypes. Still, most of us still continue to see Americans and British people as our goal, but actually the type of English that we can aspire to use, it can simply be non-native versions, right? There are lots of non-native great authors, great writers out there, great linguists. So we don't actually have to aspire to be of native like in every way. For example, changing our pronunciation to meet native like pronunciation, native like accent, it's almost impossible. So we shouldn't actually try. The native speaker / inner circle models continue to be used as prototypes, both as targets and learning environments and locales of research studies. Even the context where research is being undertaken, these are mostly in first world countries, quote unquote first world countries. The tired and discredited concepts of error analysis, fossilization are still touted in teacher training programs. The direct method continues to be favored and learners continue to be punished for using their mother tongues. ESL or ELT programs continue to be in denial of the multilingual ecology in which Englishes are learned and used around the world. So still the bridge remains half built, not fully built. 3 decades ago, we remarked on how the rich data from the developing world and the theorizing that is based on it were ignored in SLA. As Ortega says, who we study determines what we know. These populations continue to be ignored today, but with much less excuse, since the intervening decades have seen a plethora, means a lot of, publications and from the most respected academic outlets of the first world. The Harvard psychiatrist Arthur Kleinman's observation about his field we cited still holds. So large a portion of humanity and so small a presence in theory. So there needs to be more theory building, more theory related World Englishes research. Apparently this neglect is not restricted to SLA and ELT. Johannes Ziegler points out the price of such in his endorsement of a major collection of studies in South and Southeast Asian psycholinguistics. The Anglocentrism, means the notion of the English being the best, the Anglocentrism of traditional psycholinguistics has undermined a full understanding of both the universals and language-specific aspects of language processing. So we shouldn't always compare how people think about language, how the brain thinks about language of an Asian or of an African person with that of an American, because the context is always king, and there are other reasons. The language may be a reason, the other languages, interactions with the other languages, as we studied, it's a bidirectional relationship, not a unidirectional. English not only influences our languages, but our languages also influence the English that we speak. Perhaps the reasons are to be sought in the institutional imperatives and the sociology of the applied linguistics disciplines. So Kachru said this. As Stephen May has pointed out, it is interesting to see both how much and how little influence the world English's paradigm has had on mainstream SLA. So it's a bit of a paradoxical statement, right? Like it has had a world of influence, like world Englishes has influenced SLA a lot, and then at the same time it hasn't had very much influence because not everyone agrees. People still continue to, like the majority of the people still continue to write books in traditional SLA paradigms. The paradigm hasn't shifted to the paradigm proposed by World Englishes yet. The paradigm gap is being bridged from both ends, but it is a bridge only half built. Building the rest of the bridge will involve making full use of all that the World Englishes paradigm has brought to light about second language acquisition and use. Research on the dimensions of intelligibility, the nature of bilingual creativity, the much broader range of contexts and genres of second language use which serve as sources of data the tension between local and global allegiances with respect to issues of economics, identity, power, prestige, and authenticity, which make English such a rich, resonant, and controversial mode of communication around the world. Such a beautiful sentence to end at, right? It's rich, it's resonant, it resonates with us, but it's also controversial. Okay, so let's end it right now. So a few words before I end. I actually first thought that I would just make one video of me reading the entire article. I thought that it's just 10 pages. I'll take about an hour, preferably below 60 minutes, like 50 minutes something. But what happened is that I took about 4 hours or even more than that, I have to count, and I made 11 videos. So I spent the whole day doing it. You'll see that I'm in a different t-shirt in some of the later videos because I showered and then came back, and my throat hurts. But thank you all for being here. I know that it's the playlist is so long. As I said, I wanted to just make one video because then everybody or like many people would have come to watch, but I quickly realized that this wasn't going to happen, and so I split videos up, and still some videos are so long. Most of the videos are so long still, even if considered separately. So yeah, in the future, inshallah, I'll try to make I'll not do this again, I guess, unless inshallah, if there comes a time when I have many subscribers, then if people want to see it. But for now, I think I'm going to stick with smaller content, with shorter content, limited to about 15 minutes. I think that's the magic number. So yeah, I'm signing off. Bye bye, tata, assalamu alaikum.